Bom dia, meu nome é Liane Zink e eu estou aqui em Heiden, na Suíça, no Centro Internacional de Biossíntese, para fazer uma entrevista com o criador da Biossíntese, David Boadella. É um prazer estar aqui. David é um homem que criou uma teoria não só pós-reichiana, uma psicoterapia corporal, mas com muita originalidade. Ele também, além de ser psicoterapeuta, é um poeta. David, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. So first of all, I want to give my warmest greetings to the International Biosynthesis Congress. I'm very sorry I cannot be with you in person for this great occasion, but I'm certainly with you in spirit. I wish you a lot of beautiful experiences in a very beautiful place. I thank you all from my heart for coming here to make new contacts with the life fields of biosynthesis, which have been in constant development over the past 30 years. I deeply thank all the trainers and organizers who have worked so hard to make this great Congress possible. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So, can we start the interview? Okay, I have a first question for you.
You have 10 questions, right?
Yes, I have 10 questions. When was the concept of life fields first used? And how has it been developed since?
The life field concept began when I came to live in Switzerland and Sylvia and I started working together. So it started in Zurich with the first training we set up together. And you could say, why is it 7 and not 10 or 6 or 4? 7 is this magic number, but Reich had 7 segments of the spine, starting with the top of the head, the back, the curve, the back of the chest, the lumbar region. The 7 is built into the anatomy, so 7 is organic, natural. And of course we have nerve centers, nerve plexi, endocrine glands on the spine. The Hindus call it chakras, but the Western people call it nerve centers. So the life field concept is related to these 7 fundamental somatic regions of the body. And it's also linked with 7 distinct areas of human experience. So it's not just anatomy, it's life experience. And it gives to the therapist 7 basic categories of intervention. You work here, or you work there, or you work somewhere else. And when you work with one area and you get to the essence, it jumps across and starts to spark with other areas. So one life field reaches 6 others. But then 7 life fields, you've got 42 different links.
They are connected.
They're connected, yes. And another important thing about the life fields, which I didn't realize so much when we started, but I realize it now. They're life fields of expression, and they're life fields of experience. Expression is what you show. You can video it, you can audio tape it. It's physical, it's manifest. Experience is internal. So it's a form of consciousness, awareness. Awareness of the body, awareness of the contact, awareness of the thoughts, and so on. But consciousness, according to neuroscience by doctors' research, does not stop when you die. And if that is 30 years of research by doctors in this area. So the good news is when you die, you take your life fields with you. Although they're linked to the body in expression, the internal experience of the life fields goes with you when you die.
That's very important.
Very important.
Yeah.
And one last thing about this question. Other body psychotherapy methods have developed concepts a little similar, like Peter Levine has something, sensation, I forgot what he calls it. But no one has 7. We have got the most differentiated model of any body psychotherapy direction. So 30 years ago, it's still developing.
It's more and more complex, huh?
And simpler.
And simple. Okay, thank you, Dave. How does the concept of emotional layering relate to the life field model? It is similar or different to Reich concept?
Okay. Reich had primary emotion, secondary emotion, tertiary emotion. The mask, the destructive layer, the difficult layer, and the core layer, Parakos called it. We have the primary layer on the life field model is the light color, the white color. That's the primary level. The secondary and the tertiary are outside. We haven't drawn them differently. But the core, the inner essence, is even deeper than Reich's primary layer.
Oh.
And that's in the center of the model.
Yeah.
So we have the essence, the primary life fields, the secondary and tertiary life fields on the gray area outside the model. But in practical work, it's much more complicated. You can have 10 levels, 12 levels. You have different layers. It's like archaeology. The deeper you dig, the more fresh things come up. So you're going to have anger hiding fear, and fear hiding sadness, and sadness hiding another fear, and shame can come in, and all these different emotions have layers. But the deepest layer is joy.
Mm. Yeah, that's important.
Yes.
Okay. So it's when we work in biosynthesis, we go looking for the essence, yes?
You're trying to make a contact with the essence as soon as possible, because that's where the strongest resources are, and your values and your qualities. And once you contact the essence, it starts to spread out and make contact with the content of the life fields. So your emotional experiences, your memories, your action patterns get more connected to your deeper self.
Okay. How does biosynthesis look on transference? And where does this show on the life field model?
Transference is a word that is, I've forgotten who first used it, some of the early Freudians, I think Freud himself or earlier, and it has got a negative meaning in psychoanalysis, in the way it's often used. If you go to the meaning of the word, transference means carrying across. So I talk with you, you listen, there's transference of ideas. You ask me a question, I give an answer, transference of words. We touch each other, transference of sensations.
Yeah.
So transference is what is moving between people in a give and take pattern. And that's in all the life fields. So we can share words, we can share memories, we can share qualities, we can share emotions, we can share sensations, we can share movements. So all the life fields have transference patterns within them, resonance patterns. So the healthy transference is the give and take, the healthy give and take. Neurotic transference is I give you something you don't need, or I hold away from you something you do need.
Yeah.
So we're getting a disturbed pattern of blocked sharing or dangerous sharing. So the essence of the negative transference is either I project something onto you, which belongs to me, but I say this is yours. So I throw it at you. That's a negative projection. Freudians talk about positive projection.
Yes.
Positive throwing something into somebody, I don't think that's possible.
No?
So, no, don't call it positive projection, call it positive transference, or healthy transference, or healthy giving. Or I'm getting rid of something I don't need, but I don't have to put it on you. If I'm angry with the world, I don't have to put it on you. I could be angry with the world without hurting you. Then I can eliminate the feeling of my anger. I can get rid of it. I don't have to dump it on you.
Yeah, understand.
Introjection means you've thrown something into me which doesn't belong to me, and I swallow it down. I introject it. Yes. It's thrown into me. And the Freudians also talk about positive introjects. Positive things thrown into you? Bullshit. No. Positive assimilations. Oh. Positive nourishment. Yeah. Positive education. Positive conditioning. Yeah. But these are things that help me, and I take them in and chew on them and digest them. But that's not introjection. That is assimilation. So we are very careful how we use these words.
The difference, yeah?
Yes. So assimilation is healthy, taking in what you need, breathe in, eat, take nourishment from people. Elimination, breathe out, go to the toilet, and don't sit for years on blocked feelings you don't need anymore. Let them go, but don't throw them into other people. Yeah. Very important.
Yes. Where does trauma show on life fields? And what is special about the Biossíntese approach to trauma?
Okay. Trauma can affect all the life fields. It can disturb your emotions, it can disturb your movements. So the trauma creates shadows over the whole of the life field model. Now, when I was in Sao Paulo some years back, some of you will remember the conference that Liane organized, and I had a speech there, and I had an overhead projector with where you put paper on it and you see it on the wall. Yeah. So I put the life field model on the overhead projector, and there you saw it on the wall. Yeah. Then I took a glass of water and put it over the essence, and then you saw the essence go grey. Remember?
Yes, I remember this. Yeah.
Then I took the water away, and the essence is bright. So then you could see the essence doesn't disappear, but it can be hidden. You can forget to see it. And this is very strong with schizophrenia, where there's a lot of deep loss of contact with the essence. And this essence is related to the sun. It's the light, the inner light. And the schizophrenic woman I knew, she said the sun is black. Oh. The sun has gone black. My inner light has gone dark. But the light hasn't gone out. The important teaching in biosynthesis is that the essence doesn't die. The light never goes out.
Even if it's schizophrenic people?
It doesn't go out, but they can't see it. Oh, okay. It's still shining, but it's blocked by the difficulties. Just the same way, if we have a cloud go over the sun, or an eclipse of the sun has gone black. Yeah. But it's not the sun, it's your seeing of the sun. The sun is still shining. So the essence is always there, giving its inner light, but we can lose contact with it, and then the sun has gone black in the extreme form. So the trauma upsets our contact with our essence. And then in the work with trauma, we have to try and recover that. So the key principles of our trauma work affect all the life fields. So I'm going to give you the 7 examples from the life fields. The first one, the trauma is something you need to stop at the time or react to or run away from or stop. But your actions are not successful, otherwise it wouldn't be traumatic. So you have latent actions which are not used. A classic example would be running away from a danger. If you run away successfully, the trauma is not locked in your body. You have succeeded. If you want to run and can't, the impulse to run remains in the body. So the impulse to act against the danger of the trauma is remaining in the body ever since. So part of our work is freeing the unused actions, the actions we needed at the time and could not use. So that's the first principle, finding the appropriate actions. That's the first life field, right?
Yes.
And by the way, part of that first principle is your posture. Posture makes you a victim. The trauma makes you a victim. And in that victim state, you tend to regress. So lying down, which is a regressive position, is the worst position for working with trauma. Because it's less adult, it's more in the past, it's more infantile. It's okay if you're not dealing with trauma, you want to relax and get in touch with more spontaneous movements. But for trauma people, lying down on the mattress and suffering is the worst possible body position. Because sitting or standing affirms the ego, and lying down relaxes the ego. So the trauma person needs to be present here and now, and sitting or standing has more backbone. Then the second life field is the body sensations. And the trauma creates, at the time, painful body sensations. And these remain in the body. But we can influence our body sensations by how we breathe, how we move, how we look, the contact we have. So the clients, we have the trauma body, which is a body memory in the body of the trauma. And then we have the body here and now. So the client comes into the room with his body and his here and now body and his memory of the trauma, the somatic memory. So what we have to try to do is to help the client realize whatever your body felt then, you could feel differently now. And that's why the elements of touch can be helpful. The appropriate touch, we talk about that perhaps later. So new body sensations, here and now, which are non-traumatic, are the resource. And that's why if you don't work with the body in trauma therapy, you lost great potential. Then we have the emotional third life stream, the emotional life field, the emotional field. And here a very important principle of biosynthesis is that the emotion which is very strong, maybe it's fear or anger or rage or grief, this emotion needs to have containment by the client's own body and by the therapist, the other person. So we talk about the bridges in the body when you have enough muscle tone to handle your anger. Your voice is free enough to speak your anger. If your voice is tightened and blocked, it's difficult to express your anger, right?
Yes.
And then we have the banks of the river. We call it the banks of the river, which is, if I'm your client, you're my therapist, you look at me, you speak to me, you touch me, you're in contact with me, you help me to slow down or get quicker, you help to modulate how I handle. So if I'm the river, you're the banks.
Oh.
If my river is very dry, I don't need much banks, I need more help for flow.
Yes.
If my river is overspilling, I need more banks.
Yes.
And this principle of giving containment for the high charge of trauma and for borderline people came very early in biosynthesis, before the life field concept. And Stanley Kellerman and I developed that independently as a very important principle. Don't get lost, don't drown in your trauma. Don't get lost in it, don't overflood. Get the right balance of holding and release. So it's a very important principle. Then in the fifth life field, we have language. And some body psychotherapists forget the psyche and they become body therapists. And then they work a lot with the body, but they forget about language. They even teach Don't go in your head. If you go up and speak, you're in your head. Come out of your head.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, because moving up into your head and speaking is half of the work, and the other half is coming out of your head and body language.
Yes.
So body language and verbal language are up and down. We call it translating up into the body, translating down into the language. Sorry, up into the language, down into the body. And that means we ask the client to talk, to tell us what happened.
Yes.
And not only what happened then, what is happening now. So talking is finding a new container. As I tell the story, we have what is called narrative reconstruction. Telling the story gives a form to contain the experiences. And in borderline people, there's a thing called alexithymia, which means no words for feelings.
Yes.
So for this client, we have to help him. The therapist models how to find words for the experiences which are wordless. So finding words for feelings is a very important part of the fifth life field. Then we have the sixth life field in trauma, which is related to pictures, memories, because memories are not verbal, they are inner pictures. So, and dreams, of course, part of this. So sharing of dreams, sharing of inner pictures, painting experiences can be very helpful to give form to the unformed effect of the trauma. And last of all, of course, we have the essence, the seventh life field. What is the meaning of all this? How can I get meaning out of the meaninglessness? How can I find purpose in the purposelessness? How can I value myself in spite of experiences which took away my value? So each life field can have a trauma effect, and each life field can have a resource for helping you.
I think this is so important because you work as a unity all the time, yes?
Yes.
Biossíntese is like this,
yes.
Yeah? Not splitting the body and the mind.
No, absolutely not.
That's fantastic, yeah. Okay. What can you say about the concept of polarity in biosynthesis? How does this relate to the deeper understanding of character? Oh, I like this.
Polarity is a very important principle in biosynthesis, and we work with it all the time, but you won't find it so much in other psychotherapies. It's implicit but not explicit. But Reich had it because he had his model of a common source and then an arrow, and then it divides. He called it functional identity and antithesis. The identity is the unity, the antithesis is the polarity. So Reich had this principle. Examples of it in daily life: sleeping and waking, opposite poles. Breathe in, breathe out. Work hard, play. These are natural poles of life where we need to have access to each pole and move between them in a rhythm. So polarity is basic to pulsation: opening, closing, up, down, in, out. They're all basic polarities, left, right. And so therapeutic work is trying to help to the client to be aware of the natural polarities, many of them, in life, in himself or herself, and to be aware of both sides. But the opposite of polarity is duality.
Yeah.
And duality is splitting. I go here, I don't go there. Or I go here, and then I jump here, but I miss the middle. So I'm stuck. Either I'm too up, or I'm too down.
Yeah.
Manic depressive is the best example. Manic depressive means I'm either up too much, or I'm down too much. But healthy polarity is up enough and down enough. So the manic depressive has got, that's a character tendency.
Yes.
Either too much overexcitement or too much depression. Frank Lake, who was a colleague of mine in England, developed the concept of polarity in character further. He helped to inspire me at this time. That was when I was in England. And he said, all the character patterns are polar tendencies. So he looked at the schizoid pattern, and he said, which is going too much inside. And he said the opposite is the early hysteric pattern coming too much out. Yeah. The schizoid is afraid to be out, the hysteric is afraid to be in. So he said the character patterns are actually dualities. And what we need to do, and this we agreed together, come back from the extremes into the dance in the middle. So then the character patterns are dualistic holding patterns. Yes. Holding down, holding up, yes. Holding in, holding out. They are tendencies within us, but what they are not is typologies. So we're not a box. We don't say somebody, okay, you're a masochist, you're schizoid, she's hysteric. This is oversimplifying and pathologizing. And we had a client here, in a group member in a basic training, and she said, incest happened in my life, but I'm not an incest victim, because that's an etiquette.
Yes.
And when the therapist says to me, you're an incest victim, he's traumatizing me. Yeah. I'm not an incest victim. My name is Margaret, or whatever her name was. I'm not an incest victim. So you don't have your etiquette, schizophrenic, masochist, psychopath, borderline character. Take this etiquette away, but we can have a borderline tendency or a psychopathic tendency. And then we have to recognize it and help it to get in balance. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very important because it's different, David, when you speak about tendency. Not so rigid.
No, it was a rigid tendency.
Yeah.
But not a rigid
system, yeah?
Not a rigid box. It's a more open system.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And what's interesting is that we talk about, usually the word character comes from Greek. It means put in a mold. Fixed in the tendency tends to fix you in a direction. So character in that sense is negative. But character in the other sense, having a good character or a fine character, has a different meaning. So the schizoid tendency in extreme creates lots of difficulties. But going inside
in the silence
is looking inside yourself, being more introverted at times, is a quality. So the over-extrovert person has lost this quality and needs to develop more the healthy introvert. Yeah. And the healthy introvert is not the schizoid.
Of course.
So they're different. Then we have other words for what is generally called character. One word is personality. I like this word because personality means persona, through sound. How do I show who I am in my voice, in my speaking, in my body language? Persona. And persona. Persona. First time I said that. Persona is through sound. Persona is through the body.
Wow.
Personality. New word.
Yeah, you're so creative. Okay.
So another thing with this polarity duality, very important. The polarity is healthy, and it's not too much.
Yes.
And then when we go over the healthy edge, which is called the margin of safety, we get the extreme of the duality. So we have to learn not to recognize when we're stretching the elastic too much, it might break.
Yes.
And that's the elastic limit. The elastic limit is part of the pulsation. When the elastic snaps, we're in the extreme.
I have to ask you something. Can we say polarities between schizoid and psychopath?
No, call that a duality.
Okay.
A duality, because it's not healthy.
Okay.
If I'm one day manic and next day depressive, that's not a polarity.
Okay.
That's the duality.
Okay.
But one day I'm happy and next day I'm sad, could be a pulsation. That could be the polarity. You see it in this room. You see sadness in the first part of the session, and then later on you see joy. That's polarity. That's polarity, healthy.
Yeah.
But if somebody's stuck in one feeling for weeks and weeks and weeks, then we're in a duality.
Okay. How do you understand the process of overcoming the difficulties of the past, and how can the life fields help with that?
Okay. The difficulties, you said, are in the past. You had difficulties in the present as well. Yeah. But the life field model is relevant in the womb. Because in the womb, you have movements. You have motoric impulses. Yes. In the womb, you have body sensations. In the womb, you have emotions.
Emotions?
Yes. You can feel afraid in the womb, or you can feel angry in the womb. You can feel happy in the womb.
Oh.
You have emotions in the womb. In the womb, you have contact with other people. You have the womb itself around you. You have the impulses coming through the cord. You have contact with the outside.
To the umbilical cord.
Through the umbilical cord, and through the fluids moving around the body. And in the womb, you can't speak, but you hear sounds, you hear language. And there's examples of a child in the womb, a baby in the womb, growing up in France. Everybody speaks French language. Then the mother moves to England just before he's born. He's born into a different language culture. He finds it hard to learn English. He hears somebody speak French. Now I know what it's about. Wow. So there's evidence that language, listening to language in the womb has effects.
It's there already?
Yes.
Wow.
We don't say the child understands what is spoken, but if the mother says, "I love you," with a loving voice, something gets through. So psychically, there's a psychic connection as well. So how the mother thinks will have effects on the baby. Then the sixth life field in the womb is dream time. The average adult is dreaming about 1/3 of the night. As you get older, you dream less. So I dream less. The child, early child, is dreaming about half the time, half the night. The unborn baby is dreaming about 3/4 of the time. Ooh. How do they know this? By measuring the rapid eye movements. Yeah. They don't know what he's dreaming, but they know he is dreaming. So the imaginal life is active in the womb. And in the womb, and we know this more from prenatal experience of people reliving their prenatal life, there's this feeling, I am coming into the world. I come from this dimension into the new dimension. I am here. That's a feeling of essence.
Yeah.
So all the 7 life fields are present in the womb. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Then they're active in childhood. Yeah. We carry them with us through adult life, in therapy, beyond. We come to dying. We're helping in therapy that helps people die. What's that called? The accompaniment of dying people. We're helping people to die. The life fields are relevant. And as I already said, when we are dead, the body is finished, the somatic expression is finished, but the life fields continue.
Wow.
You still have thoughts. Yeah. This is shown by the consciousness after, when the brain has stopped working. You're no connection with the body has stopped to function, the brain has stopped to function, but you still have your thoughts, you can still read what's written on the ceiling, you can still have movement intentions. You can't move physically, but you have an intention. You have feelings, you have memories, you can dream. So, but no rapid eye movements.
Yeah. That gives me hope, you know.
Good.
Is this the Sylvia's book about?
Her book is a lot to do with this process of how birth and death are related, and the holding membrane, which is containing both experiences and everything between. But you have to ask her about this.
No, but I think it's connected. Okay.
Yes.
So, the 8th. Biosynthesis.
Just a minute.
You still have some more?
Maybe.
Good.
Yes, something very important. Because your question is about the past.
Yeah.
What's happened in the past, you can't change.
Yeah.
You can change how you deal with it, but you can't change the events.
Yes.
So if you had a brain injury, or you had a traumatic experience, or you had a difficult history, you can't change the history.
Yeah.
And the word for what has happened is fate. Fate means something has happened which I can't change. So we have to recognize we can't change our history, but we can change now how we deal with the history. Yeah. And we can change, we have choices over what we're doing now in the future. Yeah. Okay, we're going out of the door, out of the room or into the room, we have choices. And these choices are to do with destiny. And destiny is where you're going. Your destiny. Destiny is to do with the future. Yeah. Fate is to do with the past. So when we realize we can't change history, but we can change how we deal with it, the change of how we deal with it is a choice. And the choice is part of destination. This is my way I go.
Oh, this is nice.
And I can change the way I go any moment.
Is the concept of transformation?
Yes, destination and destiny relates to transformation. Yeah. Because you can change your form.
Wow.
Very important point.
Very important.
And one other point.
Okay.
The resources for the trauma. There are 3 kinds of resources. Yeah. Resources before the trauma happened.
Yeah.
Maybe the trauma happened at 4. So what was life like at 3? Go back before the trauma. Find resources before the trauma. Very important. Then there can be resources in the trauma. Not the trauma itself, but resources in how you dealt with the trauma. So it could be things like activating the motoric responses you had at the time. Yes. So resources within the trauma, before the trauma, and after the trauma. So three levels of resource. Okay, your next question.
Thank you. Biosynthesis is very original. So what is your common ground with other approaches And what is very special in Biossíntese?
The first...
Trick, huh?
Okay. Of course, Biossíntese is developed out of the work of Reich.
Yeah.
Because in my work, I started my Reichian therapy when I was 21, early. And I was practicing with my first client when I was 26, early. And what I learned from Reich, I never met Reich, but I knew Eva Reich. What I learned from the Reichian work was two things: expression and contact. Reich was actually very good at contact. And if you read his case study about schizophrenia, you find very high contact level work with a highly disturbed person. Then the earliest concept of biosynthesis to develop was this concept of charge and containment. Very important, I talked about it already. Then came the life streams when I was still in England. And then when I came to Switzerland and worked together with Sylvia and we formed the Institute, we together developed the life field model, which has been evolving ever since. But what I would like to say is what is special to the life field model as we go into the details. Each part of the life field model is containing a whole system within it. For example, if you take the first life field, just one little segment, within that you have all the motoric fields of biosynthesis, the movement possibilities, yes, yes, and the impulse qualities. They're all in this first field. So, being able to dance creatively is in the first field. All free movement in the first field. The second field, we have all the polarities of breath. We have a whole week of teaching about polarities of breath. And the elements of touch, which is very specific. And no one else that I know outside biosynthesis has developed the concept of elements of touch, yeah, in such a distinctive way. Yeah. And that includes touch in the energy field, which we have developed. So the physical touch and the aura touch is a whole system of understanding and practice, which is just part of the second life field. The third life field is this emotional place where this charge and containment is so important, and the emotional layering, and how important it is that in your expression you're in touch with yourself, you don't lose yourself in expression. The fourth life field we have very differentiated with the contact channels. What kind of eye contact? We have a whole week teaching about eye contact, voice contact, different kinds of voice, different kinds of language. That's all part of the fifth life field. And one thing that's very important in biosynthesis is that we emphasize very much, when you have a deep experience, maybe it's helpful to write about it. So we have the idea of the experiential report. So writing about an experience helps to anchor it up in your awareness. Or sometimes people will paint an experience. And that goes into the sixth life field. And now we're not with words, we're with pictures, landscapes, paintings, sharing dreams. Poems. Well, that's fifth life field.
Oh, okay.
Because it's words. And finally, the seventh life field, we have what is very important in our work is somatic meditations. Now, you know, you asked earlier about Oriental philosophy. Yeah. There are some teachers, I don't know if they're therapists, but they're teachers, and they do a meditation week with darkness, no light. Your food comes invisible.
Really?
Yes, yes. Extreme reduce of sensations. Yeah. No language, no talking, no light. And you're in a room in a week where you don't talk to anybody, or you're alone. And for some people, this may be helpful, but we don't encourage it. Yeah. Because it is the danger is spacing out. But I know, I have a friend of mine who does this every year. He goes and has a strong retreat in this blackout place, and it's good for him, apparently. But our meditations are somatic, meaning we're helping the person to be in the self and in the body. And that's the polarity again of earth, body, light. Earth, light, we call it the earth-light axis.
Yeah.
So this kind of meditation, and meditation is very interesting because it links with two other words: meditation, medicine, mediation.
Oh.
Medi means in the middle.
Yeah.
So mediation means when there's a conflict between two groups of people, or between two people, somebody comes in the middle and helps to resolve the conflict. Medicine, your body is disturbed and the doctor comes and helps you to get back in balance.
Yes.
Meditation, your sense of yourself is disturbed, and meditation is helping you to get back in the middle of yourself.
Wow.
So meditation, mediation, medicine are all linked.
That's the first time you say this? No.
Yes. No.
Because it's so
maybe.
interesting.
Yes. And what we have with some people, we have what we could call spiritual escapism. They go into the spirit to avoid the body.
Yeah.
And so this kind of spiritual escapism we are discouraging strongly.
Yeah.
And then back to another Oriental word,
Yeah.
guru.
Yes.
Guru just means teacher. But sometimes we have an inflated spiritual narcissistic leader who wants to be the teacher of everybody else, has to be like he says. So it's an outside pattern dictated from outside how you should be, which is the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But I am a teacher, Sylvia is a teacher. We are teachers in our training, but what we are trying to do is to help the people who are learning from us to find their inner teacher. So then you find your inner guru. And meditation is part of the way to that too.
Well, so now we go to the good question that I love this question because it just came from the Congress in Portugal, or EBP, and I got this. The concept of energy in therapy is being treated with suspicion these days. Why is this? Do you think energy is esoteric or unscientific?
That's a very important question.
Yeah, I love this question.
Okay. One of the first psychotherapists to talk about energy was Freud. And he called it libido, the energy of pleasure. And he said, we are trying to work with getting the libido more fluid, more alive. And then Freud started to work with touch and breathing and physical expression, and he couldn't handle it. It was too much for him, what came out in the client. Yeah. So Freud said, less energy, less libido. Close your eyes, lie down, be quiet, talk to me about the past. Tell me your dreams. But Freud started with libido and then he got less libidinal. Jung came along and talked about libido. Yeah. Then Reich came and said, libido is physical energy in the body. Let's be more in the body. So Reich was a rebel psychoanalyst. And he was a rebel politician because he was a Marxist. Yeah. So he was a critique of society because of the way it mishandles people, and a critique of Freud. And then Reich published his first big book, Function of the Orgasm, which is about life energy and pleasure and sexuality. And Freud said, just a minute, be careful of what we're doing here, be careful. And then when Reich really started working with the body, which was just after I was born, they had a congress, a psychoanalytic congress in Switzerland, and Reich was thrown out. And the reason they gave him for throwing him out was, you're working with the body. It's not part of psychoanalysis.
Oh.
The real reason was Reich was a critique of Hitler, a strong critique of Hitler.
Oh.
And he was too dangerous to have in the psychoanalytic community. That was the real reason. So Reich became an outcast of psychoanalysis and indirectly of psychotherapy. And he didn't come back into recognition until the encounter days, when you got more freedom. And Fritz Perls, who learned from Reich, was doing encounter groups. And so gradually, Reich got accepted through the back door by humanistic therapists and by the later generation. And then came people like Lowen and Kellerman and me and Gerda Boysen, who were supporting Reich, welcoming him back into psychotherapy. But the reality is, some therapists are afraid of too much energy. They're afraid of too much expression. The opposite of this charge containment stuff. They want to get back more in the head. And then Reich becomes the enemy. We have to keep him out, keep the energy out. And there was an interesting experience in Switzerland where a group of body psychotherapists did a survey trying to prove energy is unscientific. And
when was this?
20 years ago in Switzerland,
yeah.
And I criticized this very strongly. I fought this and I won. They dropped their campaign. And then I showed all the scientific roots for the reality of energy in the body, in the brain, and so forth.
You did?
I did, yes. Because I published articles about it and I published this report. And so what's very interesting is that Lowen, who was supporting the energy concept, was quoting in his books a man called St. Georgi. And St. Georgi was a Hungarian scientist, a biologist. And he wrote a book called Bioenergetics. And it's not about Lowen. It's before Lowen was doing anything. Yes, St. Georgi wrote a book called Bioenergetics. What is it about? The energy in the cells, the energy in the tissues, the energy in the body. It's a very scientific book. And he was given the Nobel Prize for his work on energy in the body. Then trained by him was a man called Oshman, who wrote an excellent book published in 2000 called Energy Medicine. And this is about energy in the body, circulation of energy, expression of energy. It's not about body psychotherapy, but it's about the reality of energy in the body. So energy medicine is a whole tradition of doctors working away from the classical model of normal medicine into energy flow, how to help that, how to regenerate the cells. So we have to be very careful of these people who come along and say energy is esoteric. I had an experience in the Swiss Charter when we were getting recognized for biosynthesis as a method, and every method had to show their qualities, their evidence. And one of the questioners came to me and said, "Where is this energy, Mr. Boadella, in the body? How far out does it go? Isn't it getting esoteric, Mr. Boadella?" And then he was a Jungian. And then I had a book under the table and I said, "Would you like to hear what Jung said about Kundalini?" No, it's okay. Don't want to hear about that. So energy frightens some people. And we need to be careful to keep the balance between shutting out esoteric energy stuff, which can get bullshit. It can be a lot of bullshit about that. And letting in the real energy flow of the body and the mind and working with it creatively.
Because now they call themselves body psychotherapists or humanistic.
Yes.
Not energetic anymore.
Yes, well, humanistic is fine, but it's not anti-energetic in principle. But what we have got at the moment in psychotherapy recognition processes is pseudo-scientific psychopolitics. And that's what some therapists are supporting because they think that makes us safe. And we've got to be very careful we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes. Very good, thank you. What do you think of the concept of self? And how do you look on this in Biossíntese?
Self. I looked up the root of this word. It's an Indo-European root.
Yeah.
Because English self, German selbst.
Yes.
What is it in Portuguese?
Self.
So it's similar words, right?
Yeah.
All goes back to Indo-European seba. Seba.
Seba.
Yeah, and it means me and the other.
Ah.
So the self is basically you and the other person. Yeah. You can't grow a self in isolation. So you develop yourself in contact with different people, self and other. And we have two kinds of self, the neurotic self, which is back to this character stuff, or the essential self, the authentic self. So of course in therapy we're trying to support the authentic self and help to weaken the neurotic self to recognize and change, transform the neurotic self.
Like
then
the false self.
The which?
False.
The false self, yes.
Yeah.
So the concept from Winnicott of the true self and the false self is a very good concept. Yeah. And Winnicott was a very early therapist in England with the concept of grounding. He was doing very, very good work. And he talked about the true self and the false self. Yeah. So false self is like the over-socialized self, over-conditioned. But the true self is related to your individuality. And I like the meanings of words. So individual, you know what it means? No. It means not divided. Oh. So your individuality is your not divided self. You're not split. Your identity, your integration. And then we have the word self-regulation.
Ah, yes.
Which was used by Reich a lot and by other people in England in early relationship studies. Self-regulation happens with others, but it means your freedom to make healthy choices. You're not dictated to by outside. You have given enough freedom to make choices.
To survive.
To survive. So our life field model is a model of the self. So we have 7 aspects of the self. And I'd like to finish with a few questions about the self. If we're trying to help the self to be more articulated, who are you? Now my questions, you don't have to answer. Who are you? Why are you here?
Oh.
Where did you come from? And where are you going? That's your destiny.
Yeah.
How much do you need? How did you develop? And how will you go on developing? When did you start? And when shall we stop?
Wow, fantastic. Well, David, thank you very, very much for those precious moments to be here with you. I'm luck. And everybody who is here, it's luck to have you answer our questions.
And thank you for the very creative questions. And it's very nice to share them in the Congress and before the Congress to share them in this training.
Very nice. Bom, para finalizar, eu quero agradecer muito todas as respostas e as perguntas que fizemos com o David e o precioso momento que ele nos deu de nos responder. E agradecer a todos que estão aqui. Boa sorte no nosso congresso.
Good.